Hey, filmmakers, I'm Nick Bodmer.
I'm Griffin Hammond, and on this week's episode, we're talking with our podcast editor, John Luna, about Final Cut Pro 10 and Adobe Premiere.
Plus, your questions about finding an audience, avoiding flickering light, and making corporate videos look cool.
Hello, Nick.
Hello, Griffin and John. How are we doing?
Nick.
Good. So, John, we're excited to have on, this is episode 79 of the podcast, and it's nice to finally have you on, because if you had to guess, how many episodes of this podcast have you edited?
Maybe somewhere around 30?
Yeah,
right?
That sounds about right. I bet someone could probably go look. I don't suggest anyone actually does this, but there is like a little credits thing you can do in YouTube videos, and I've been trying to tag you every time you edit an episode.
It's working. Yeah, it's working.
Nick, you're
He
tagged
knows.
too.
He knows. Am I?
Yeah, I usually
Does
tag.
that do anything for me?
I have no idea. I think it probably just means if someone were to click more info on a video, they'd see us listed, and if they clicked on your name, Nick, they'd land on your YouTube channel. So maybe a few people have landed on John's YouTube channel.
Maybe like one or two.
Yeah.
Maybe.
So one of the things I want to talk about today is about your experience in Final Cut Pro 10, because you are an Adobe editor. How long have you been using Premiere?
Premiere, I've probably been using it for about a year and a half.
Yeah.
So it was a learning curve to learn how to use Final Cut and the magnetic.
Yeah, the magnetic timeline, yeah.
Yeah, that was hard to get used to.
Yeah. Well, yeah, because when you offered to edit the podcast, I didn't even consider letting you use Premiere. I was just like, yeah, sure. Here's Final Cut. I'm going to make you use Final Cut.
Good luck.
Yeah, pretty much. Well, you did take a lot of time to teach me how it works.
Yeah.
And now I'm pretty much editing by myself.
Yeah.
Then you come in and let me know what I should change.
Yeah. So what is the weirdest part? Because I've been using Final Cut for 7 years. I've probably forgotten how different it is from Premiere. So what are the weirdest things that you have to get over to be comfortable with it?
Sirens.
Yeah, we're in New York City, and if you watched last week's episode, you know that I moved out of my office into the living room where it's even louder.
Yeah. So I think the trickiest thing is knowing that, I guess, in Premiere, we have the timeline, and every layer is by itself.
Right.
So then if you cut something, you could delete an entire track.
Yeah.
And then, yeah, that is a weird thing, that everything is connected to clips on the primary storyline, which in Premiere you would just call that V1, right? Yeah.
Track V1. And whatever you do on V1 in Premiere, it doesn't affect V2 and V3 and V4.
Exactly.
In Final Cut, yeah, if you delete everything on the primary storyline, it deletes everything on every track.
That happened a few times.
Yeah. Anything else?
But there's always Command Z. Brings it right back. Don't worry.
Yeah, there you go.
That's always my first instruction to John is Command C.
I've definitely done that, though, where you delete something and forget that like something you needed was attached to it, and you don't realize it till way later, and it's too late to undo, and you're just like, no.
Exactly.
I was even struggling. I mean, I've been using Final Cut forever, but sometimes it's hard to tell where that connection point is.
Yeah. It could be like all the way in the beginning, and you make your cut somewhere in the middle.
Yeah, I mean, by default, a clip is connected to the primary storyline on its very first frame. And so when you move it around, it's always connected to whatever its first frame is sitting over. But then when you do some edits and change the in-points and out-points, that connection point can shift depending on the edits you've made. And so sometimes I struggle, one, to find where the actual connection point is. Usually it doesn't matter, but sometimes when you're moving things around, it does. And then two, last week I was just struggling with, I knew I was going to make a deletion that was going to remove things above it, and I didn't want that to happen. So I was like, is there just a way for me to move that connection point? Like in advance, could I just tell it, no, I don't want the connection point way over here. Can I move it over here? But Nick, I've never figured out how to do that. Is that even something you can do?
So basically you're trying to replace what's on the primary storyline? Is that accurate?
No, I want to change where the thing on the secondary storyline has chosen to connect to the primary storyline. You know how it has that little line?
You probably have to do it with like sliding the clip, where you're doing that kind of an edit. I don't know.
Does cutting
I do a lot
and
of
pasting?
copying and pasting, probably.
Yeah, that probably would do it. Yeah, you could copy it, then delete the thing below it, then repaste it back in its position.
Yeah, I think that's how I've worked around it.
What I've usually done to get around it is if you select the thing in the primary storyline that you're going to get rid of, and you right-click on it and you say, like, what is it? Disconnect or lift from primary storyline. Then it becomes its own secondary thing, and then you can delete it. And now the thing above it is just connected to a blank spot below it.
Oh, okay.
It's a little bit convoluted, but...
Yeah, so it replaces the clip with a blank
Yeah.
video, yeah.
But yeah, that can be strange. All the magnetic timeline stuff and the way things are connected to each other, no tracks, that's all really weird in Final Cut.
But there's a lot of... I can't think of it now, but I've noticed a lot of times that it does a lot of cool things too.
Yeah.
So like... Yeah, I can't think of it right now.
Yeah.
But I have found that it has a lot of cool features.
Well, I like the way, and this is one thing that you do a lot in the podcast, is I like the way it makes it really easy for J and L cuts to happen, where if you double click a clip, it pops the audio down below it. It's still connected, but it just shows it to you in two separate tracks. And then if you drag the in point of the video in, it leaves the audio sticking out in front to help you do crossfades and J and L cuts. And I just wonder, is there something comparable to that in Premiere?
I think in Premiere, like, it is linked, so then you can hold Alt and just stretch audio.
Yeah.
And it doesn't move anything around.
But in Premiere, audio is always, they're connected, but it is distinctly a different track from the beginning.
Yeah.
Audio is always down at the bottom, below all the video. Yeah. Whereas weirdly in Final Cut, you could have an audio track connected to a video clip way up on like the third level.
That was interesting too.
Yeah.
Oh, you can have audio and video, then audio and video below it too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We have a question from Warren. He emailed me because he knew you were going to be on this week. And he was wondering, this is probably a question for all three of us. He'd love to know if there are any tips or tricks for combining 1080 video and 4K video in Final Cut Pro. And he's wondering, does Final Cut automatically downgrade 4K video when you add it to a 1080 project? So we've done some of that, right?
I think the answer is yes, right? I mean, Final Cut makes it pretty easy. Just whatever your project settings are, it's going to convert whatever video you throw at it to that format.
Yeah. I mean, this podcast, we shoot it in 1080, we edit it in 1080. But I think you and I have worked on some projects, some other corporate things I'm working on, where I actually like to like the final product may be 4K, but I kind of like to edit in 1080 because I have no idea if I'm right, but I seem to think the computer probably has to do some less processing.
Yeah, probably. I was doing a time lapse, it's like 4K.
Yeah.
And then playing back, it was slow. But I feel like it was faster when I made the sequence 1080.
Yeah. Nick, does that make logical sense?
It's possible. The data rate of the video file is the same, but
you still have to read the
post-processing
data file,
it's doing, it's doing at a lower resolution, which probably is a lot easier on the CPU. So if you're CPU bound or GPU bound, I can see that helping. If you were disk I/O bound, I don't think it would help.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. It's not going to speed up how quickly it's reading those 4K files. But yeah, right. I just figure especially when I'm editing in that little tiny Final Cut preview monitor, I'm not going to notice the difference between 1080 and 4K. So I just figure until I'm done with the video, let me just edit in 1080, and then when I'm done, I'll just change the project settings to 4K. And usually, unless I've done some weird spatial conform settings, it makes no difference when I change it to 4K. Everything is still where it's supposed to be.
Now, if you are combining different types of footage, one thing to be aware of course, is, if you have different frame rates, that can introduce more issues than just different resolutions. So if possible, try and match those frame rates, I would say.
Yeah, because especially my concern would be I feel like if you started editing in 30 frames per second and changed it to a 24 frame per second clip, it's possible you wouldn't have problems. I think you might still have some issues. But I definitely know if you started with a 24 frame edit and you decided to change it to 30, let's say you were making it for film and now you're making it for TV, you're definitely going to have some issues because now you're asking Final Cut to add in new frames that weren't there before. So some of your edits may be happening a frame later than you really want them to, and you'll have some. I think you'll have some things that don't line up. You might have some little gaps in there.
And when you edit 30 frame video in 24, you can see the missing frames, no?
Yeah, I mean, you may not always notice it. Depends on the motion that's happening.
Type of motion. Yeah.
I think if you're panning,
Yeah,
you can see like it looks jittery, I
yeah,
guess.
stuttery. Yeah, because you figure you're
You
losing.
get an uneven motion. Yeah, it has to drop frames, but not the exact same amount. Like if you
Right.
go from 48 frames to 24, it'll look
That's
perfect.
Yeah.
But going from 30 to 24, odd numbered frames are getting dropped, and that causes issues.
Well, yeah, you're losing 6 frames every second, and so it
that's a
means
lot.
it's playing like 2 frames and then skipping 1, then playing 2 frames, or it might even be a different number of frames. It's weird, yeah.
Yeah,
It's
that's why they
weird.
say.
That's all that matters, and you can notice it for sure.
Yeah, that's why you should be intentional about how you're going to edit it, because you don't want to have to drop frames.
Yeah.
A lot of times, I guess out of laziness, I shoot in 60, and if I'm not going to slow it down, I just play it in 24.
Yeah.
And then I can tell when I am doing like a pan,
Yeah.
I can see those frames
Yeah.
dropping.
But like it's a trade-off, and I think Nick and I have both done the same thing. We've edited weddings in 24 frames and purposefully shot everything in 60 so that we could have that beautiful 40% slow motion. But
If you
then
need it.
half the stuff isn't in slow motion, and yeah, the client, I think it's kind of a nice trade-off to have that beautiful slow motion and then have the other footage be a little tiny bit jittery in a way that probably only editors notice and the client won't.
I think so too, yeah.
The rest of Warren's question was, let's see. Yeah, he's wondering, are there any manual conversion techniques that work better than Final Cut's automatic features? I guess what he's talking about when downgrading from 4K to 1080.
I don't think so.
Yeah,
I think I would trust Final Cut.
I would trust it. And then he's wondering, what else should a video producer pay attention to when combining video at different resolutions?
The only other thing I would say is, if you have 4K footage and you're shooting in 1080, it does give you the ability to punch in or crop in post.
Yeah.
And that can be very handy. So if you have 4K footage, it's a 1080 project, don't just think you just have to shrink it down to fit. It also is going to give you a little flexibility in the edit, and don't forget about that.
Yeah. And I've always felt like even if I'm shooting in 4K and editing in 4K, I always, and this was probably the same in 1080 too, I've always felt pretty comfortable pushing in about up to like 20 extra %, and it still
That's
looks
exactly
pretty good.
what I was going to say, 20%. Yep.
I think I've gone as far as 50%.
That might start to look
I think
noticeable.
50 you'll notice for sure, and like to the point where I think other people could notice, but sometimes it's right for the project, and
Yeah.
I say do it.
Yeah, if that's really what you need people to focus on, it's a really important moment. Even if it looks a little messy, it might be okay. But I was going to say, you would think then, if you're editing in 1080 and you have 4K footage, you could definitely push in to 200%, to double. But my experience has been, while you do have those pixels, you're shooting through the same lens.
There are other areas where the image quality can break down.
Yeah,
It's
it
not
can look a little
just
bit
resolution.
fuzzier. So I don't always recommend that people shoot in 4K with the intention of punching all the way into 200. I think you have a little bit of room there, but I always feel weird about like shooting an interview with one camera in 4K and then trying to do like that punch back and forth between 200% and 100%.
I think if it's all 4K, then you can tell.
Yeah.
But what if it's like combining, like he's saying?
Yeah. Well, I did this recently on a project. We talked last week about the video I made of Alex running the race, and I used the super slow motion feature on the GH5, the 180 frames per second, and that's a 1080 shooting mode. So I'm shooting the entire thing in 4K, mostly 4K 60, and I can slow everything down to 50%. But then I have that one, there's only one shot in the whole piece, I think, where he's like running away from the camera, and it's in 180 frames per second. So it's like 1/6 speed or something. And it's 1080, but I think it just looks so interesting.
Yeah, it looked good. I couldn't tell.
Yeah, and I think it's a nice trade-off. It looks so interesting because it's so slow motion that you don't care that you're not getting full resolution. But you're right, John, that I think like a really important consideration at the start of a project is what is your end goal resolution-wise and frame rate-wise. Figure that out first, and then you can figure out how to shoot it. What's the best way to edit it? So I feel like we should talk about how you and I met.
Okay.
Because it's not like I just like hired you to edit the podcast or something out of the blue.
Yes, I made just a random video, and it was supposed to be the trailer for my channel, which I need to post on eventually.
This was like your welcome video to the like John Luna YouTube channel.
Yeah, and then I kind of made like a compilation of people that have taught me how to create videos.
Yeah.
And you were in it.
Yeah.
And then, yeah, you saw it on Twitter.
I feel like you even did it in a smart way. Like, I can't remember. I almost feel like you didn't even go full screen with a YouTube video of mine. Didn't you, like, show it on a screen?
Yeah, it was on a screen.
Yeah, I always like that.
And then, yeah, you saw it. And then I said, oh, you know, I would love to meet you someday.
Yeah.
Then we got together for lunch. And I wanted to start a relationship. And here we are.
Yeah.
So it was just
so sweet.
a random video.
It brings a tear to my eye.
Yeah, so
Sometimes I don't silence my phone. My apologies.
So, yeah, you know, I just made a video. You saw it.
Yeah.
And yeah, you never know when you make something what it could lead to.
Yeah. Did anyone else respond to that video?
Ryan did.
Oh, Ryan Connolly. Cool.
Yeah, he saw it.
So if you happen to live in Texas, where I think Ryan's in Texas, maybe you'd be working with him right now.
Yeah.
But it worked out that we live in the same city.
Yeah, so, yeah, as soon as I learned that you're from New York, I was like, okay, I have to meet him.
Yeah.
Because I binged like a ton of your videos, and I did learn a lot.
Yeah.
So it meant a lot that we could.
Because you're relatively new in your filmmaking journey. Like, how long have you been doing this kind of work?
I think at most like 2 years.
Yeah.
But I'd say like a year and a half.
Yeah.
Is when I got serious.
Mm-hmm.
That was like spring of last year.
Yeah.
Maybe not a year and a half yet.
But I've been impressed that you went from just like starting to watch some YouTube videos, learning the craft, to picking up gear, and now you're doing freelance work.
Yeah, I'm freelancing.
Yeah.
My last one was like a corporate doc kind of video.
Yeah.
Which I saw there's a question about.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's going okay. I'm getting like 1 to 2 gigs a week.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm busy there.
Yeah.
And it's working out.
Well, we should talk about then just briefly what is working and what isn't working in terms of like if someone else is in your shoes, similar position where they're trying to start out and get work, what have you found has led to this work?
I think it's been just making things that I enjoy.
Yeah.
I've been making videos like sporadically, I guess.
Yeah.
And I seem to only create when I'm frustrated. But then people like those videos that I don't feel like I put a lot of effort into.
Yeah.
So that's, you know, surprising, I guess.
Yeah.
But it's been just making things that I want. And then it resonates. And I get jobs.
When people, they see the kinds of things that you're excited about making, then they're like, oh, could you make something like that for me?
Yeah, pretty much. I made a video about Grand Central.
Yeah.
And then I got hired to shoot just B-roll of like Chinatown and the Lower East Side. And it's the same thing that I was doing.
Yeah.
Except I was getting paid a day rate.
Yeah, the first video was just for fun, and it is a beautiful video that you shot inside Grand Central. It has like some hyperlapse stuff and some interesting gimbal shots and things.
And that was my first. That was actually a test video for my gimbal.
Yeah.
I was like, okay, I bought a gimbal. Let me use it. I shot it, and people like it.
Yeah.
And that's what has led to some work.
Yeah. So do what you love.
Yeah, pretty much.
You mentioned that question. We should go ahead and answer it. Let's see. Oh, yeah. We got a YouTube comment from Drew B. Darby, who said that he's a corporate shooter/editor, makes lots of interview/B-roll type videos, and he feels like it's just done to death. Slow motion was fun for a bit, nicely lit interviews are great, but he's just curious what the next generation of corporate videos could look like, if we have any other tricks up our sleeve that can shake us
reality
out.
TV style. All reality TV.
Well, it's funny because he says that like the interview B-roll mashup is kind of done to death, but I kind of feel like that's everything I do.
I took a shot at you. Drew doesn't like your work.
I think it is, but it isn't. It depends how much time you get.
Yeah.
So like the video I shot from my last client, it's just like that. Slow-mo.
Yeah.
You know, nicely lit. But I only had like 4 hours to shoot. So that's all you're gonna get.
Yeah.
And I feel like to get something like what you shot for Panasonic in Switzerland, in Alaska, that's nothing. I mean, what he's talking about, it's not like those videos.
Yeah.
Those look like more produced.
Yeah.
Then again, you flew somewhere and you had more time.
Yeah.
I think it's just a matter of time.
Well, I've always kind of thought there's these, I've talked about these before, like the building blocks of documentary, that you have interviews, B-roll, nat sound breaks, and a television news story on the local news does those things, a documentary does those things, corporate video does those things. I feel like it's the same pieces, but you can change the quality of the pieces with lighting and sound, and you could do time lapses to make your B-roll more interesting or something like that, or do slow motion. But it's always the same parts, it's just how you do them. And I think my tendency is probably just to do a lot of B-roll. And I mean, if you're not already doing that sound breaks, I think you could probably do that to make a corporate video more interesting. Like, it's not just a person sitting down doing an interview. Maybe you also have some audio of them in their meeting telling their coworkers, like, all right, guys, here's what we're doing today. Like, maybe that will feel more like, I mean, Nick, you were showing me that documentary series on like the NFL teams.
Yeah, Hard Knocks.
Yeah, like that's a documentary series that has a ton of B-roll, has a few interviews, I think, but it feels like it's more cinema verite, which means like it's true life. It's more like you're hearing the audio on the field, in the conference room. They've like mic'd up everyone all the time.
Yep. And they've got cameras in like key rooms that just record it. It seems like all day long, and then they just pull stuff out. So it is kind of fly on the wallish, which I love. It's a great series on the Browns this year, who can't win, but they're trying.
I think you would struggle to do that kind of thing in a corporate environment, though. Like, no one's going to agree to be like, yeah, mic me up all day. And I think most companies wouldn't want that like messy security camera look. They want it to look very like nicely produced. But yeah, I think you can just think about like different ways to shoot your interviews, different ways to shoot your B-roll. But I still think those building blocks have to be there.
But I think that's the difference, like the verite style versus like, oh, let's make up a scene.
Yeah.
All right, you're in an office, make believe you're talking.
Right.
I think that's a difference maker. If you can follow a process, that's going to be a way better video. And I'm waiting for those big budgets to come eventually. Yeah. Or else we're, for now, we're stuck doing those kinds.
Yeah. There's another question we have that I think applies to what we're talking about right now. We got this question. This was a Facebook message I got from Jamil, who I had answered some other question for him, and then he was following up. He's new to this. Oh, his first question was about he's he wants to start doing filmmaking right now, but his concern is that I can't remember how old he said he was, but he's had a career, and that career's over, and he's just wondering as like an older guy if he can start a new career in filmmaking. And my thinking was, I feel like you can become an expert in anything in 7 years.
No, for sure.
So if you look at the course of your life, you have the opportunity to have several careers if you want to. Like, especially you at the beginning of this, like, you would say, yes, he should try it out.
Oh, funny thing. Today's my birthday.
Happy birthday.
Thank you.
Happy birthday.
Thank you. So, yeah, I mean, I picked a video at 27.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's late, but, you can learn it. And then it's a slow process, I think.
Yeah.
But within 7 years, I think you can be a professional.
Yeah.
Make it your full-time thing.
Yeah. Well, and however you want to define it, you're a professional right now because you're getting paid to do it. So in 2
yes.
years, you've at least hit that milestone. Yeah. And then his follow-up question to me was, now that he does want to get into it, he's just wondering if there's any books or websites that we would suggest to start learning. And I haven't answered the question for a few days because I was thinking, like, I don't know, what books would I read? And the first thing that popped into my head was just the website No Film School. I think you should definitely keep
It's a
an
great
eye on
resource.
that. Yeah.
I think they post like 10 articles a day.
Yeah.
And it's a mix-up of like screenwriting and effects.
Yeah.
They cover it all.
Yeah. Nick, are there any things you've relied on?
I mean, basically, anytime I need help, I just call you.
The Hey
And
Andy
that's what everyone should do.
podcast.
No, I like your phone number. I think we should share it and just let everyone just give you a buzz anytime.
I feel like I haven't really read filmmaking books since I was in high school. Back then I was really into like reading screenwriting 101 kind of books. I did in college read a book called Story by Robert McKee, which I think is a good book in terms of crafting a story, but it's not specific. It's kind of specific to screenwriting, but not necessarily to the like making films. But I still think that's very useful.
It's on my
And you just got
cart.
to make as much stuff as you can, right? Because that's really how you learn, I feel like.
Yeah, that's how I've learned. I feel like I always think like you can't mess around in editing. You kind of have to have a project all the time. Like you need to just start making something, and then you'll run into some problems, and you Google, how do I do this? You watch a YouTube tutorial. You could watch one of my YouTube tutorials, or one of John's YouTube tutorials, or one of Nick's tutorials, and learn something.
All you'll learn from my tutorials is how to rip apart hard drives, so I'm not sure that's going to be as helpful, but important to safely store your precious video files.
So normally this would be the part of the show where we say, let's answer some questions, but I kind of just blew past that and started diving into them.
Yeah, you've done a great job.
Nick, you want to read the actual first question we have for today?
From Jade, is that what we're looking for?
Yeah.
We got an email from Jade. How did you reach your audience initially? How did you find them and keep them interested?
And she's talking specifically about Sriracha. With that, I mean, I definitely shouldn't discount the fact that I was working for Indie Mogul at the time. So that channel had 500,000 subscribers. And not all of them were paying attention to me and my film Sriracha. But that jump-started my audience for the film. And then when I started getting press for the film, I made sure I pushed all the audience to a Facebook page. Oh man, we got thunder and lightning outside in New York right now. I pushed everyone to a Facebook page, and I was able to develop an audience of 3,000 people. And I think at the time I was proud of the fact that maybe half of them were like Indie Mogul filmmaking kind of people, the kind of people listening to this podcast now. And I think half of them were just Sriracha sauce fans. So I think I had a nice mix of
You
people.
had a good mix.
Yeah. So that was how I started to cultivate that audience specifically for this film. And then just used that Facebook page to share behind the scenes photos. I mean, I think you took some photos of me like filming in a jalapeno field. Do you remember that?
I do.
And so that kind of stuff just...
what you're saying is it's really up thanks to me
Yes.
that you reached your audience.
Well, I always forget about the importance of behind the scenes. And I think John's been helpful for me in that sense.
Yeah, I've tried to remember a few times.
Yeah, there have been times when I was working on like corporate projects where I look over and you're just like behind me with your phone taking a picture. And that's so helpful, especially when you go to tell the story of your behind the scenes. You're making a documentary essentially about your own production process. And you need B-roll. I can always get an interview with myself or voiceover, but I need some evidence of what happened. And it's not enough to just use the footage I shot and some of the outtakes. I need something that shows me with a camera.
I think I've only taken one photo out of my client work. Yeah, I just remembered last week.
Yeah.
And yeah, the only one.
Well, yeah, it's always an afterthought because you want to get the job done first. But if you can find a way to get some evidence that it happened, that's nice. And then I made a lot of behind-the-scenes videos, too.
I have a question for you, Griffin.
Yeah.
So, I don't know if you heard, Apple announced some new iPhones.
They did.
Did you
ordered it.
finally decide to upgrade your iPhone 4?
I don't have an iPhone 4. I have an iPhone 6S. But what is that, 3 years old?
Basically the same. So it's 6S, 7, 7S, 8. 4 years old?
Oh, wow. Maybe it is 4 years old.
Maybe you got it, though, and you got the cheaper ones. Maybe it is only 3 years old physically, but it was a 4-year-old phone.
It might be 4. I just didn't remember. Was there really a 7S as well?
There what? Or am I making that up?
I don't know. But yeah, I ordered the new giant iPhone X. It's not X, it's 10, like Final Cut. The iPhone XS Max.
Okay.
Max. Those are the worst product names I have ever heard. Am I crazy?
It's weird, yeah. It feels weird for Apple, which usually has like very clean. I don't know. Their names have gotten less clean over the years. It's a lot of phones to keep track of.
I don't like it.
So
there was no iPhone 7S. I lied. So,
okay. So yeah, I think it was 3 years.
September 2015.
There was a really interesting feature. I know Nick and I were both watching the announcement for the new iPhones, and I don't know if you saw this, John. They have like an f-stop thing you can change on the iPhone. It doesn't actually change
in post.
Right.
Like after you've taken the photo, you can adjust it from f1.4 to f9 or whatever, and change the bokeh, the background blur, in post production, which is awesome.
Yeah, you're not really closing down a lens or opening up a lens, but what you're doing is it has 2 cameras, right, Nick?
It has 2 cameras. Yep.
And it's using that depth perception from both cameras to make like a, what do they call it? Like a depth mask around the subject. So it knows where the thing that's in focus ends, and so it can throw everything else out of focus.
So it's supposed to be better.
But it does it variably, right? So stuff that's really far away gets blurred more than stuff that's only a little far away. So it is intelligent and tries to mimic what adjusting an aperture would actually do from a physics perspective, which is pretty neat.
Yeah.
But they had something like that, no? Portrait mode?
Yeah, so they already had the ability to get rid of the background, to do some interesting lighting on the foreground, but I think it's a new feature that you can adjust the bokeh level of the background. It's also them kind of acknowledging, like, it's a small lens, it's a small sensor, we're not going to be able to do anything to create actual bokeh, but we have the technology now to create that effect.
And it's just getting more and more advanced. You know, it's what they call computational photography, and I think it's pretty neat. And they're actually using machine learning and what they call a neural network to do that stuff really fast on the fly. It's actually quite impressive.
Does the machine learning mean that Apple has computers looking at 1 million photos that exist, and it's analyzing, oh, this is what real bokeh looks like?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yep. And I already had the iPhone 10, right?
You're the kind of guy that you over the years you've upgraded most years, and I think you've usually
The
made your money
only
back.
iPhone I haven't bought was the iPhone 4S. I don't remember why, but I kept my 4 for 2 years.
But every other
I've bought every other iPhone.
You've had a 5, a 5S, a 6, a 6S, a 7, an 8, a 10.
Well,
Or
the
not
8s
the
came
8,
out at the same
yeah.
time as the 10. Yeah. So I had the iPhone, the iPhone 3G, the iPhone 3GS, the iPhone 4.
Oh yeah, you were the
skipped
first
the 4S,
person I knew who had
got the
an iPhone.
5, 5S, 6, 6S, 7, and now the 10. And
then-
I did not order one. I
Why
did
not?
not.
Because you've always been able to just like get a new one, and I've always been impressed that you just put your old one on eBay right away and make all your money back. So you're not really losing money in this process of making.
Well, you lose a couple $100 every
yeah.
time.
Well, you're losing
there's
the
no
like
doubt.
the upgrade cost, but yeah.
Right. I don't know. I thought the phones looked great, but I thought it looked like a fairly incremental upgrade. I'm really happy with the iPhone 10, and I just thought maybe I should sit on it for another year and be like a regular human being and not buy a new phone every year.
Yeah.
But so all the reviews just dropped like literally 30 minutes before we started recording, and
Why is
I
that?
thought the
Like,
camera.
Did they just now give, or the embargo?
The embargo just dropped. Yeah, the embargo just dropped this morning, so everyone is dropping their reviews. I thought usually what makes me upgrade is the camera. I love taking photos and videos with the iPhone, and it just looked like a fairly minor upgrade. Like you can adjust the depth of field, but there's third-party apps you can do that already on the iPhone 10. But I guess Apple kind of undersold how much better the camera is. I guess the sensor is 30% bigger.
Oh, which
And
presumably means it has 30% better low light performance.
well, they're saying 50% because I guess the actual pixels themselves have gotten bigger as well. So, I mean, looking at like just people's sample photos, I'm like, holy crap. I mean, it's a big difference. So that's making me reconsider, I'll say.
Well, and for me, it seemed like an
I
easy
have-
choice because I knew that going from a 6S to a 10S would be a huge jump in
Massive upgrade.
battery life and processor speed. And I just knew it'd be a better experience. And then also, I think you were just saying, like, you're going to have a baby now, so you're going to want a good camera.
Yeah, trust me, you are. And they also have a new thing called Smart HDR. These phones already did like automatic HDR when there was a really contrasty scene, like a backlit scene or something, but it's kind of been taken to the next level.
Yeah.
And apparently, just looking at these sample photos from non-professional photographers, it's making a huge difference. So check back with me in our next episode. I wonder if I will have pre-ordered one. It's possible. If I can convince the missus.
They might be professional. Did you see that? I think it was Hawaii. I don't know what the name of the phone is, but they had like a professional set,
Yeah.
and the guy I think took the photo with like a DSLR
Oh, I did see
with
that.
lights, and then he had his hand out
Yeah.
to fake like a selfie.
Do you know what John's talking about, Nick?
Is this that Samsung commercial?
No, it wasn't Samsung. I think.
It might have been this Chinese
No?
company, Huawei, I think.
Yeah, Huawei.
Oh, yes. Yeah, and then the behind-the-scenes photo came out, basically.
Yeah.
Yeah, pretty much like the actress in the shot had posted on her Instagram, like, hey, look, I'm on set. And you see like a big Canon DSLR shooting the photo, but in the shot, it's this guy holding the phone out, or holding the Canon, like he's taking a selfie with the phone.
You can't trust those ads.
Yeah.
Oh, that's funny.
So we have a question. I thought this was an interesting YouTube comment we got from Shawnee Boudoir, who says, congrats on the baby, Griffin. And he was hoping that you and Nick could solve an issue I've discovered on some footage I filmed of a live band in a venue, which I think had UV lighting, and it caused a wave-type effect on the video background. Have you ever encountered this?
Is that like a non-global shutter issue, like a Jello effect type thing? I don't really fully understand what's being described here.
I think that could be part of it. Have you encountered this, John? Do you know what he's talking about?
I couldn't even tell you what UV like.
Yeah. Actually, so someone is buzzing my doorbell right now, and I wish they'd stop.
Who is it?
Mail.
Bring them up. Bring them on the show.
I think the mail people have learned that I'm always here because I'm a freelancer and I'm working from home. And so I'm always buzzing them in for other people's mail.
Oh, there you go.
They'll get someone else. He says UV, but I think maybe he means fluorescent lighting.
Black light?
No.
Oh,
All right, I'm
okay.
going to go answer this doorbell.
So, John, how are things?
Everything's pretty good. Can't complain.
John, give us the play-by-play. What's happening?
I'm already back.
Okay. I was gonna do a play-by-play.
That was really fast. How did you do that?
I have a small apartment.
So, like, if I had to go to my front door, it'd take me 15 minutes.
Yeah, well, I don't have to go all the way to the front door. I just have to, well, yeah. So I think what might be happening here is, I mean, it could just be the lighting is weird, but I'm guessing it's the refresh rate of the lighting is not matching up with
The frame rate.
and or his shutter speed. I noticed that Shawnee is in the UK, and so my first question would be, was he shooting in a different country? Because in the UK, electricity cycles at 50 hertz, 50 cycles per second, and so that's why their normal frame rate for television in the UK is 25 frames per second, because it matches. But if you were to come over to the US and try to shoot 25 frames per second with 60 hertz lighting, you could encounter some weird banding issues. So that'd be my first question. And I guess the solution would either be to change your frame rate, or you don't necessarily have to change your frame rate. You could change your shutter speed to match. Like, how would that work out? I guess if he was shooting 25 frames per second, but shows a 1/30th of a second shutter, I think that would fix it. Or 1/60th of a second shutter. That's what he wants. But it may just be weird bad lighting that, like, it's going to look weird no matter what. And the GH5 has a setting called Synchro Scan, where you can kind of tweak that setting to try to match the weird thing you're shooting. That'd be my advice.
Yeah, I've just fixed it by changing the shutter,
Yeah.
and then it works.
Yeah. Generally, if you have a really fast shutter, you're going to encounter this problem all over the place. So if you're someone who's in the habit of closing down your exposure by going to a really fast shutter, that's when you're going to get into trouble. Like, that's why you probably need ND filters, because if you're shooting everything in, especially if it's a concert venue, maybe there's a lot of lighting and you're like, I need to go to a 1/500th of a second shutter to make the exposure proper. Now you're just going to see every sort of flickering thing there is, because you've just made your shutter too fast.
Yeah, it seems like something you don't want to do. That's super high.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, you want to get your shutter to match what is going on with the refreshing of the lighting. Likewise, the faster you shoot, if you shoot slow motion, you're going to encounter all sorts of weird flickering things.
Yeah.
Because you're moving faster than the refresh rate of the lights. Oh, this was a YouTube comment from Terme Bergamo, who is referring to last week's episode where I revealed that I will be a father in the coming months. Thank you, John. And Terme says, wonderful news, Griffin. This is the best news ever. Junior is very lucky to have found you and Amy to be his parents. Truly wonderful. Let's have a baby shower and allow your fans to send in gifts to your lovely son. Very best from Terme.
What a nice message.
Nick, I don't actually think anyone needs to send me gifts.
No, I certainly won't.
You and Kristen gave me some nice gifts.
All right, we already gave you a gift. Damn.
Yeah.
There were sloths.
Yeah.
They're cute. Yes, soon you will have a child and you will have to do what I just did, which is run out, help the child, and then return to the podcast secretly and no one noticed.
Right. Well, I will say that we're going to put several things in the show notes this week. One is I'll make sure that we put links to John's YouTube channel and your Instagram. I think we talked about, well, we should put No Film School in there. And again, no one needs to buy me a gift for my baby, but if you are someone that absolutely wants to, but please don't, because we have everything. We're going to be fine. But we did put together a registry for our friends and family so that if we do get things, we don't get things that
you don't need.
That we don't need, yeah. And of course, I made a vanity URL for that. It's griffinhammond.com/baby.
Okay. I like that one.
Well, because I wanted to make it easy to tell my friends and family, and I thought as long as I'm at it, as long as they're going to an Amazon wish list, a registry, I might as well use my Amazon affiliate link.
You're the worst. That's funny.
So I'll get 6% of every purchase,
And then
on top of the purchase.
it's all for the baby.
The last thing I was
All
going
right,
to say.
so I'm looking at your registry right now. There's this Ergo Baby Omni 360 all-in-one baby carrier. I want a video of you with a baby in the carrier, you know, hoofing it around New York. Thank you.
That I'm sure will happen. Should I just convert my YouTube channel to just all reviews of baby products?
I think this podcast might turn into a parenting podcast. I don't know.
Hey, indie babyers. Griffin here. Before we go, the last thing I wanted to mention is many of you, if you're following rumor websites, you may know that Panasonic has some big announcement coming on
What is it?
Tuesday, September 25th. This is during Photokina, the big German photo conference that's happening. And they've announced, they have a countdown right now on their website to a big press conference to announce whatever this product is. And it's going to happen in German time. So it's actually going to be 6:30 New York time, AM, on Tuesday, October 25th. I recommend you check it out if you're into Lumix camera products. But also, I think if you really want to know everything first, you should follow the Lumix USA Instagram channel, which I'll also put in the show notes at Hey.film, because it looks like they're going to do some sort of live stream of the press conference on the YouTube, on the Instagram account. Yeah.
That's 3:30 a.m. my time, so I'm looking forward to getting up right after that.
He'll catch it for sure.
Well, yeah, because next week we're going to take a week off, and then we're going to do our final long-form episode like this of the podcast on October 3rd. And normally, right now, after we hit stop recording, Nick and I would record our bonus episode to play next week. But I have a feeling that after Panasonic's announcement, that should be...
You might have something to talk about.
Yeah, so we won't record anything for next week until...
Good. Makes my life easy.
Yeah.
Alrighty, friend. Another episode in the bag.
Yeah.
John, thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah.
Guys, give him a follow, a subscribe. Check him out on YouTube and Instagram and Twitter.
Yeah.
That would be great.
Be sure to thank John in the comments for all the editing he's done on the podcast over the last several months.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's been fun.
Yeah. All right, let's have you now edit this one, John.
Yes.
Get to editing. It's got to go out. Bye, everybody. See you later.
See you, Nick. And I think generally, if it's comfortable, sitting like straight up rather than against the back of the seat always looks better.
Oh, like I should not.
Yeah,
lean?
if you like lean against the back of the seat, you kind of just look like you're slouching. Like
You're
the
right.
bottom of
When
your
I
body
make
is like close
frumpy.
to the camera.
You get frumpy.
When I make tutorials, I do sit up like this.
Yeah.
But yeah.
It looks better.
Anytime now, gentlemen.
Yeah.
All right,
Oh,
Nick is
sorry.
ready for us.
Okay.
I'm just messing with you.